we're back, and today we're talking about the future of Arcane, or the next season of a League of Legends story, because we know that Arcane is the last season for these characters, meaning, Vi, Jinx, Victor. So what's going to be the glorious evolution for the next League of Legends story? And I think I got the answer. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. Now, I do want to give my opinion on Arcane Season 2 Part 2 because there were some very defining moments, important moments that I think are kind of foreshadowing where the story is going to go next for whenever we get like Season 3 of Arcane or whatever they're going to call it, because I do think it's going to be a different name. But Episode 4 starts off by trying to humanize Jinx, right? Because we know Jinx, in Arcane Season 1, she was crazy, and in Part 1, she was going kind of wild as well, right? So they're trying to humanize her, especially with Isha, because it seems like Isha is like her catalyst to be more human, more, more acceptable, more like somebody like Vander, right? And we see that Zoan right now, they're looking at Jinx like the hope that they need, like the leader that they need. And we even see the comparison with that with Vander. And of course, we also got to talk about Silco in here in this situation, because again, it just kind of brings back to how when Silco was talking to the statue of Vander, saying, is there anything more undoing as a daughter? And of course, that's a straight parallel to Jinx and Isha, especially with how Part 2 ended. Now, Episode 5, it kind of goes back to Jinx and Vi's relationship. And of course, it even focuses more on how they regret some of the actions that they took in Season 1, especially Jinx, whenever they went to rescue Vander for the first time. They went at it alone. There's some regrets that led them to different paths, different choices. And we see that Vi and Jinx are reuniting once again in order to rescue Vander, Warwick together. And it all seems great. I mean, we had a very good scene, very powerful scene. Definitely one of my favorite episodes of Arcane. It was very beautiful. And we also get to see Victor and Jace returning. Now, Victor, he's on some crazy stuff, okay? He's over here taking control of people, being at multiple places at the same time. Crazy, crazy stuff. But was Victor responsible for bringing Jace back? Because we still don't have Heimerdinger and we still don't have Echo, and I guarantee you they're gonna be in Part 3 in the finale of the Arcane series, and they're probably gonna be doing some crazy stuff whenever they get back. Now, Episode 6 is very important. We got to see Ambessa essentially explain how Noxus is governed with the 3 principles, and we're definitely going to come back to that. But the rest of the episode really just focused on Jace and Victor. Now, I don't think that Victor is really dead. I think what died there is Victor's humanity. I do think Victor is going to come back, and it's going to be Victor about the whole glorious evolution side of Victor. So that's going to be amazing. And then, of course, it also focused on Caitlyn and Vi working together to bring down Ambessa. And we saw this from the start of Season 2 Part 2, where we see that Caitlyn is second guessing her relationship with Ambessa. She knows that Ambessa is a little too crazy, and she's probably realizing, especially when Ambessa started working with Singe, that she's not really here to help Piltover, right? She's here more for her own goals, her own needs, her own ambition. So we're gonna see where that goes. We still have to wait for Part 3, where I think the whole Arcane storyline is gonna be closed, but that's where it leads me to where the future of Arcane, or the next League of Legends story, is going to head. And I think it's very obvious by now that we're probably going to go to Noxus. Now, overall, I would say I would rate this season of Arcane, what we got so far, like a solid 9.5 out of 10. I do feel like the Part 2 of this season was very fast paced, and when it came to Warwick, I feel like his design, I don't know, I wasn't really feeling it. But yeah, I really don't have too many negative things to say. I love League of Legends, I love Arcane, so 9.5. But let's talk about where the story is going to go after this, right? Because I definitely do feel like they're setting a lot of, plot threads, and I think they're all pointing to Noxus, and it's very obvious. And so obvious that even in Part 1 of Season 2 with Episode 1, even Maddie was mentioning Noxus, but I think the biggest one is definitely when Ambessa was training with Caitlyn and she mentioned the 3 principles of Noxus. I would say the government of Noxus. And it starts off with Vision, which I think they're talking about Swain, one of the leaders of Noxus. Then she talks about Might. Again, that's Darius, another leader of Noxus. And finally, we got Guile, which I think she was talking about LeBlanc. She's the leader of the Black Rose, which, we have seen the Black Rose pop up here in Arcane recently. So you already know all the threads are leading to Noxus. But the question is, how are they going to go to Noxus? How are they going to switch, right? Because I definitely do feel once we go to Noxus for the next season, we're definitely going to see some of the characters from Arcane. And more specifically, it's probably going to be either Ambessa or it's probably going to be Mel. We're probably going to leave Jace and Vi and Jinx and all of them from Piltover and so on. We're probably going to leave them behind. But if any characters are going to go over to the next story, I definitely do think it's either going to be Ambessa or Mel. Which kind of brings me to my next point with the fourth pillar that Ambessa was talking about, sacrifice. Because either Ambessa is going to sacrifice everything and go back to Noxus and maybe claim a seat on the throne of Noxus, essentially becoming one of the leaders of Noxus, or the other route, which I think is where maybe Mel is heading, is that Mel is going to be the one to sacrifice everything to essentially go and claim her, seat at the table in Noxus through Ambessa, right? Like imagine if Ambessa were to die here in Piltover, they could definitely use that as a crutch to either have some sort of conflict with Piltover or at the very least for Mel to ascend the throne, especially since now we know that Mel has some sort of mysterious power that maybe that's going to be enough for her to, go back to Noxus and using, her family name, somehow maybe get a seat on the table. Again, that's not 100% sure. I'm just thinking out loud here. Again, I don't know really too much of the politics, but we do know that Noxus, at the very least, the way that their government works, they respect power. And if you're strong, you're definitely going to make, your name known in Noxus. And I honestly do think that if we go the Noxus route, the next season of Arcane or whatever they're gonna call it, it's definitely gonna be a lot darker, a lot more brutal, and honestly, it's probably gonna put Arcane in a whole other level. Because right now, when we're really talking about how popular some of these champions are, like of course Jinx is one of the most popular champions in League of Legends, but Victor, Jace, maybe Vi to some extent, Caitlyn, they're popular, but I don't think the popularity of those champions really compared to the stuff of like Draven, Darius, Swain. Those characters were definitely super popular in League of Legends, and once we get their stories, I mean, Darius alone is gonna carry. I'm telling you, everybody's gonna love Darius, so I definitely do feel like the next season is gonna be even bigger than what we got now, especially if it's more brutal, and honestly, I can't wait for it. Hopefully I'm right about this, because I definitely want to see more about the Noxus and how they operate, but hey, if they give us Demacia, I'm all for it too. But let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about this whole theory that we're gonna go to Noxus. Let me know if you agree or disagree. And like always, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you on the next episode. Peace out. Boom.